video in this video is just captured Marvel vs. Capcom 2 footage, which I might use later, but it's really not important. Disney has some issues with video games. Namely, they don't really have their own studio to make games for their incredibly valuable franchises. They have a studio, but for most AAA titles, they usually have been licensing them out. In news this past month, Capcom had to take down Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and MVC DLC, and that's for a game which has been in the making for almost 10 years, along with Marvel vs. Capcom 2, which had been re-released from XBLA, PSN, and Steam. The word is that that's because of an expiring license. Then just a couple days ago, we found out that Activision has to take down another litany of Marvel games for the same reason. In the summer, Disney gave EA arguably their most valuable video game license from the Star Wars franchise. So EA is going to be making Star Wars video games. Now, obviously this is lost money for EA. But it's no secret that Capcom by themselves has their own issues. They're just about broke. Some reports have been saying that they have less than $200 million in reserves, which is a very small amount of money for as large of an operation as they are. It's really not an easy way to run a publishing company, with their profit mainly coming after paying their developers. Some reports have even said that Capcom lacks money to make AAA games unless they're subsidized by console manufacturers, like Dead Rising 3 was subsidized by Microsoft for the Xbox One. Now, Disney needs a talented in-house video game maker, preferably one with experience. Capcom needs money. The answer for these two companies is clear. Disney should buy Capcom. Capcom would become Disney's main video game arm. With a long history of collaboration with Disney, they could instantly start re-releasing classic Disney NES games on a virtual console for very quick cash. Games like DuckTales, Darkwing Duck, Chip 'n Dale, Aladdin from the SNES, the list goes on. And if you look at the list of the two companies, a lot of them intersect. Because Disney would automatically have the license for both the game that was already made and the brand, which obviously is the Disney brand. And they wouldn't be able to make the new Star Wars games until that deal with EA expires. But even after that, even without that, this would pay huge dividends for Disney, who would start seeing all their video game money flowing in directly to them, as opposed to getting a piece of it from the other publishers. Now, this is a great deal for Capcom too. With other purchases Disney has made, they've proven themselves to be a pretty competent owner. Marvel, for instance, which would be a good example of how a situation like this would work, gets to operate independently. Disney didn't force them to make Mickey Mouse an Avenger, even though that would have been hilarious. They really just handed over the checkbook and told Marvel to make more money for them, which they've done pretty well, especially with their movie franchises and the Iron Man movies and the Captain America movies, and then the Avengers especially made gobs of money for Disney, which all went back to Disney, as opposed to going to a third-party studio. Now, I can only imagine that they would have roughly the same method for Disney, giving them reign over Disney characters and Disney licensed characters, the Marvel characters, the Star Wars franchise after the deal with EA expires, Disney characters themselves, and that's similar to how Marvel in 2015 is going to start publishing Star Wars comics because the Star Wars license with Dark Horse is not going to be renewed. But basically, otherwise, Disney would just be giving them money for a good return on investment. This is really the closest thing to a win-win for both companies. Disney gets a bona fide video game studio capable of producing AAA titles. I mean, if you think about like the newest Resident Evil games have been big, enormous games with huge budgets, which arguably hurt Capcom. But Disney could take the hit and could pay for that without having to hurt themselves financially. And then Disney also gets an extensive game library and many full rights back to all of their old classic games. Capcom can continue or republish many of their best games. Marvel vs. Capcom 3 presumably would go right back up to Steam and XBLA and PSN, and they would also get the rights to a lot of their classic games. Like they can republish DuckTales for the Virtual Console. Doesn't want to see that. And also, of course, they get a benefactor, and they with all the money anyone that they could ever need. They wouldn't have a this financial problems that they're having right now because Disney has pretty much all the money in the world. This is the best idea for both worlds, and it works best for Capcom as opposed to Disney buying another studio, because not only is Capcom currently in more pretty much financial dire straits, but they have such a long history together that they can republish a lot of games very quickly.